All right, ladies, we're going to talk about an important topic this week. All the topics that we chat about are important, but there comes a point when you have been doing the actions, you've been doing the things, and you still find yourself tripped up. So what we're going to start talking about tonight is your mindset. And so I just want to go ahead and first of all, kind of normalize that this has become a popular topic. Everyone wants to talk about adjusting mindset and things like that. But when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to health and fitness, your mind is just as much a part of the process as the food you eat, as the exercises that you do. And it's important to remember also that we have to train our mind. We have to work our mind. We have to put in the reps, just like we have to track our macros, just like we have to show up at the gym, just like we have to keep doing the steps, all the things. We have to actively work on it, or it's going to be the thing that holds you back. Because here's the thing. For the past few weeks, you probably, when you first started, you were probably super stoked to track your macros. You're probably super stoked to start, maybe even working out, trying some new things and, seeing yourself get some results. But there comes a time when your goal is going to become inconvenient. And this is a big thing. And this is unfortunately a big thing that I see for a lot of folks. And I really want you to start working on this little piece right now, because let me tell you, when the biggest time that your goal becomes inconvenient, it's around the holidays. You will find all of these things that are so much more fun than doing what you've been doing by working as hard as you've been working. And so we need to start to work on a few things that are going to help you shape how you see your goal, how you think about your actions, and how you think about situations. So we talk about actual tactics and strategies to deal with things like situational eating. We talk about some mind shifts there. But what we haven't really talked about is the inconvenience that tracking macros or staying consistent with a workout plan or, doing all these things can be when it comes to, doing fun things with your family, especially when it comes to fall and winter, right? We get super hyped around, losing weight or paying attention to our nutrition when there's more light outside, when we're going to the beach or we're putting on bathing suits, when it's not freezing in the morning, when it's not pitch dark at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. All the things that you've been working on are so much easier and so much more attractive. So what happens to so many is we get complacent with the things that we're doing, and we forget the inconveniences that are coming around. And so this is the time more than ever to really get a strong focus. I know you guys get tired of hearing this, to get a strong focus on your why. But I'm going to share with you a few little mindset shifts to help you out as we move through the next few weeks. So the first thing is look at what you're doing now. Let me give some backstory to this one. So you've heard me in your check-ins. We've chatted about it. Are we doing the right actions? And so looking at what your goal is, the processes, the behaviors, the habits that need to get you there. Where are you focused? And part of what we do in our weekly check-ins is kind of shift that focus to where it is the right focus. It's really, really easy to look at, okay, this is going to help me, this is going to help me, and this is going to help me. And what happens is your energy is going boom, 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 instead of, you're welcome for the sound effects, instead of just focusing straight forward. And so now more than ever is to get really, really clear on where you could just show up wholeheartedly. So this takes a look at limiting factors. So this takes a look at, your lifestyle, what's going on for you in the coming weeks and months and all these different things. So if we look at we know like the 3 pillars of this program. Okay. There's your macros, there's your muscles. So exercising and working out, and then there's mindset, lifestyle. We're talking about mindset, but for this pillar, we're looking at more like lifestyle management, stress, sleep, recovery, things like that. So looking at all those pillars, where do you need to be hyper focused in the coming months? What is going to be the easiest for you to be hyper focused on in the next few months? Now, that doesn't mean that we are forgetting everything else. It's still a system, but when certain circumstances that are beyond our control, when we are, inconvenienced by obstacles and resistances that you maybe didn't even have a couple of weeks ago, for better or worse, whether your kids are grown and in college or you have toddlers, there's a lot of things that shift when the seasons change, and seasons change tomorrow. Tomorrow's the first day of fall. Yay. So looking at what you need to be focused on to get you where you want to be is going to be incredibly helpful. So an example of this is if we are at a place calorically where you're just super comfortable and confident, maybe we stay there through the next several months and you're good. Maybe you put hyper focus on, working out. Maybe you put some focus on steps. If your activity has to decrease, maybe we switch the focus there. So looking at what is the best action for you. And here is the formula that we need to look at. The 3 E's. This comes, I've coached you guys on daily nutritional commitments. If you are still resisting diving into daily nutritional commitments, I can't tell you how much this is like the time for you to really focus on that. This is something that is so incredibly helpful for me as I move through, holidays and things like that. Having my anchor actions, those are huge. We've had so many, for those of you that have been following the saga, I think Fred was like the third. It's been over a month that they've been like tearing down our house and dealing with insurance and all that stuff. So there's been so many unknowns, and I can't tell you how much it's just solidified like DNCs. You need your anchor actions. It's such a huge thing. And then looking at, your 3 E's. So what is going to be effortless for you? That doesn't mean easy. Once again, what's going to be effective towards your goal and what's going to be enjoyable. So here's what happens when people start a nutrition plan, when people start, for lack of a better term, a diet, an exercise program, anything like that. They think, number one, they think it has to be incredibly hard. Number 2, they think it has to be miserable. Number 3, they think that they're only going to have to do it for a short amount of time. So point 1 and point 2 don't matter. And here's the truth. If you are doing something that's absolutely miserable, if you're doing something that you hate, it's not going to last. And so this is like where you can really put the rubber to the road in figuring out a lasting success strategy that's going to not only help you in this moment, but it's going to be something that you're going to be able to fall back on when you get beyond this space, when you hit your goal weight, whatever your goal is. Looking at this here is going to help you maintain that. So this is almost like looking at living at maintenance in a different way. So what are the daily actions? What are the steps that you're going to take? How are you going to live when you hit your goal? And that's what I want you to consider as we move through the next few weeks. I've already had some conversations with you guys that are getting ready to take some trips. I know a couple of you guys are actually at the beach right now. So I've had these conversations around, maybe I need to take a diet break or things like that. And that's always something to consider, right? I can't tell you what your goal should be. You have to dig a little bit deeper and say, do I need to take a diet break around this, that, or the other because it's going to serve my long-term goal? Is it for my mental health, or is it because I'm afraid to trust myself? And that's something that only you can answer for yourself. But we have to constantly be asking ourselves these questions in order to be able to learn to trust ourselves. Once again, your brain is designed to keep you safe. So this is not a character flaw. So anything that comes up that's unknown, some of you guys have started to make some really big changes and some really big shifts. And so when we get to these points, there's all these thoughts, these narratives, these stories in our head that we have to check in with. Why am I having these thoughts? Do they serve me? And do I need to rewrite, reframe, and come up with something that's going to better serve my goal, better serve my life, and better serve the outcomes that I desire? And so that's something that you constantly are going to need to be asking yourself as we move into the fall, as we move through these next several weeks. Am I choosing a path of comfort, or am I still working towards where I want to be? So the first things first is looking at what your goal is and how can you make it easier on yourself. So this is just like food. This is just like exercise, right? So we have this end of the spectrum. I don't have any slides this evening. This is just coaching. There's this end of the spectrum where it's all in, this end of the spectrum where it's all out. And so we're constantly looking for this in somewhere in the middle. Again, moderation, satisfaction, finding a little bit of ease and effortlessness in what you're trying to accomplish. The thought patterns that you have that this is super hard, I'll admit, beginning to track macros can be incredibly tedious, and it's just a skill. But the thoughts that you have around this being hard, the thoughts that you have about, going to grandma's house for a week and it being really challenging to track macros, these are all stories that you've made up in your head. And so, the saying, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're going to be right. And so a lot of this starts, and this is something that, I'm just going to be fully transparent, that my coach is coaching me on all the time. You have to start with the belief of what you are capable of. And this sounds, because I'm just telling you the thoughts that go through my head when I hear these things. It sounds like so basic and so easy, but starting literally with the belief that I can go on this trip and I'm not going to feel restricted or deprived. Tracking my macros is going to be a breeze. I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to stick with my routine the best I can. Starting with that belief is starting with success. If you start a vacation, if you start a holiday, if you start anything with the belief that it's going to be hard, you're going to be hungry, you're going to feel restricted, you're going to feel deprived, then guess what? You're probably going to get there. You're probably going to feel restricted. You're probably going to feel deprived, and you're probably ultimately going to be wind up making choices and decisions that don't align with where you want to be. So my first tip for you is to look at your goal and ask yourself, how can this be easier? And if you need help with this is what, send me an email, send me a message in the app, put it in your check-in sheet. Let's talk about it. If you need help simplifying what you're doing, let's look at how we can make that happen. I had a conversation in the app with one of you, actually, she might have been in a different group, yesterday around having lunch with friends. One of her goals has, and I love how you guys come up with these goals that have everything to do with nutrition, but they don't. And one of her goals was to connect with someone every single day, because she's discovered that the root of her snacking and her cravings are a lack of connection and loneliness. She lives alone. And so one of her goals has been to connect with more of her friends. And, this has been kind of a lonely time for a lot of us. If some of you are used to working in an office and now you're not, there's just a lack of connection in a lot of areas. And so I thought this was a super awesome goal, but then it was really stressful because she was going to go meet a friend for lunch this week. And she was really stressed about tracking macros. And this is a good example of getting worked up about a situation before it's even a situation. And I know some of you guys in this group I've had this conversation with as well, because it's been a hot topic in the last couple of weeks, which is we're talking about this tonight, and we actually have a community call on Thursday, and we're going to talk about some more of these things. But just looking at what you're doing, what you're worrying about that you don't need to be worrying about. Because again, when we go back to look at what our metabolism is, that stress barometer, stressing over things we don't need to stress about is just added stress on your body. It's not helpful for your health. It's not helpful for your hormones. It's not helpful for your fat loss goals, your muscle gain goals, your maintenance goals, any of those things. It's just not helpful. So looking at, certain stories and certain things, and, if you have a challenging situation coming up, how can we start with the belief system that we can really make a difference? And how can we start by adding some ease or some effortlessness into that situation? The second thing that you can start to do to shift your mindset in the next coming weeks, in the next coming months, as we move through the holidays, as we move to the end of the 16 weeks, is to detach yourself from your goal. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, you've been telling me to focus on the goal, focus on who I need to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not telling you to pull away from your goal. But what I see so often, so I don't want to single any cohort, any one person out, I see this time and time and time again, is we get so hyper focused on what we're trying to accomplish that we are missing so many other things. So rather than being super focused on your goal, I want you to be focused on things that you're enjoying about your process, things that you're learning about yourself, things that you're learning about your body, all these other things. This kind of ties into number one. What is effortless and what are you enjoying? I know some of you guys have put in your check-in sheet to where doing macros and doing, having a consistent workout schedule was something that you never even thought that you could accomplish day one. And you're looking back each week and it's getting easier and easier. So sometimes being hyper focused on the goal can actually move us away from the goal. So again, taking that focus back to the action steps, the processes, etc., is going to be really, really, really helpful in you actually getting to your goal. This is the point where I get to tell you, when you are working towards something that is sustainable and is long lasting, it takes the time that it takes. And this is something that I've definitely struggled with in my own journey, but I know some of you guys have made so many improvements in your health and your aesthetic goals and all these things. But I just want to remind you to reflect on all the things that you have accomplished and just realize that if you have a strong why, if that goal aligns with your value system, if that goal aligns with who you want to be, it's going to happen if you believe that it's going to happen. But sitting there focusing on a number on a scale, or I'll give a personal example. So my shoulder surgery was September 8th, I think was the exact date, 2020, last year. And so one thing that I really focused on after surgery is I wanted to be able to do a pull-up 1 year post-op. And so I spent some time really focused on that goal. I had a clear outline. I had the steps, the processes, like everything that I needed to do, just like I coach you guys on. And I had a huge step back when I had some nerve issues in my right arm. Spent lots and lots and lots of extra time in physical therapy, all kinds of other things, with a neurologist and all kinds of things. So anyway, it was really, really hard mentally. And I had to realize at that time, what I had done was put too much focus on the actual goal and not enough focus on what I was actually accomplishing. And, taking that step back, although it was incredibly frustrating, was just going to make me stronger. And the goal was going to happen as long as I believed that it would happen. Now we're in September 2021. Obviously, I hit my 1 year anniversary. I'm back to working on the goal. I haven't hit the goal. But still, I'm just focused on, one day at a time, not giving up, believing that it's going to happen. It's going to take the time that it takes. That doesn't mean that I pull back on anything. That doesn't mean I slow down on anything. I'm still hyper focused. I'm still moving forward, but I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm attached to the actions and the steps that I'm taking. So that is the second step. The third step, this is a 3-step process, is to not compare yourself. And so some of you are going, well, I'm not really comparing myself to anyone else. That's not even what I mean. Comparison, you've probably heard this, all these cliches, but they're cliche for a reason. Comparison is a thief of joy, and it is, a recipe for disaster. But comparison, not only not comparing yourself to others, to other people's journeys, but not comparing yourself to who you used to be, to other times in your life. That time has passed. There's no purpose in looking back. It's just going to frustrate you. I hear this from women all the time that are in a weight loss journey now, that they lost the weight 10 years ago. But here we are now, and you're not the same person that you were 10 years ago. Your body's not the same. The conditions that you're in are not the same. And I don't even mean, physical. There's so much that's shifted that there's no point in looking back at what that was 10 years ago. Look at what we're doing now, look forward, again, attaching yourself or detaching yourself from the actions and the behaviors, but really, really focusing on that is what's going to keep you moving forward. Looking back and, getting frustrated because what you tried 10 years ago is not working now is not helpful to your success. It's not helpful to your health. It's only harmful. So not comparing yourself, and that, again, when you're looking at a group or when you're on social media, or, this is a big thing. This is why I bring it up when we talk about situational eating. when it comes to holidays and things like that. I don't know what it is where, women just need to get around and compare their bodies and compare all these things, to be able to stay focused on your journey and, like keep your eyes on your own paper. Just focus on what you're doing, because you are different than every single person. You don't have the same history. You don't have the same lifestyle. There's all kinds of differences between you and another person. Each and every person has their own metabolic blueprint, their own unique set of needs and preferences that are going to influence your journey. So just because someone else was able to accomplish what you're trying to do quicker, also we don't know what's going on for them as far as how they're feeling in their body. We don't know what's going on with their lab work. There's so many different considerations here. And again, this is not weight loss, but just another example. There's plenty of people that had the exact same surgery that I did that I'm sure were doing pull-ups 6 months in. But again, I don't know if they're pain-free now. I don't know, what those pull-ups felt like. I don't know what they had to do to get there. The only thing that I can do is keep my eyes on my own paper and keep, making sure that I'm doing things in a way that align with how I want to feel for the long term, not just the short term. So those are the 3 things that are really going to help you as we move forward into the next several months, into the holiday season, and as you move beyond the 16 weeks. Looking at what we can do to simplify, make it easier and simpler. Again, that doesn't necessarily, we're not going to start eliminating things, but we can take all the things that we're doing and find your minimum effective dose. So I always look at this with like medication. If you had a headache and you knew that 1 Tylenol was going to do it, then why would we take 2? So kind of looking at how we can pull things out so that you can continue to move forward. It's like I tell you every single week, it's consistency, not perfection. So trying to move that perfectionism needle back a little bit for the sake of consistency. Another thing that I want to say on that, as far as, thought processes around what is easy and what is hard, is you always get to choose your hard. And so I want you to consider this as you're, moving into the fall, moving into the season change, even when it comes to, warm, soothing fall treats, Halloween candy, Thanksgiving, whatever. Is it harder for you to stick with your goal and to make actions and choices that align with your goal? Or is it harder to do these things and then feel like January 1st rolls around and you've got to start over from scratch again? You guys have done the work, so you don't really have to start over from scratch again, but can you find that place of moderation? Can you have, 1 or 2 pieces of Halloween candy instead of, having the rest of your kids' bucket after they go to bed? Can you, control your portions at Thanksgiving without having, I always joke around Thanksgiving, the Friends episode when Joey puts on Phoebe's maternity pants. Can we have Thanksgiving without having to just completely overstuff ourselves? Can we maintain a certain level of physical activity, our steps, some sort of workout, all these different things? What is going to be your hard? Is it going to be harder to stick to your routine, or is it going to be harder to get back into your routine after you give it up because it seemed more fun to do the thing at that time? And again, this goes back to belief systems and thoughts, right? So if we think that we're going to be miserable at Thanksgiving because we're going to control our portions, or if we think that we're going to be miserable because we're not going to eat a whole bucket of candy, then we're probably going to be miserable. But if we can look at, again, finding the fun in what you're doing. So that's the 3rd E, and the effortlessness, effective, and enjoyable. If we can find the fun in what we're doing now, then you can just remind yourself, like, I'm not doing something that's miserable. I'm doing something that's good for me. I'm doing something that I enjoy, and I want to keep moving forward. And this is how you're going to sustain your results that you get. You're going to do this every single holiday season. Now, if you're in a deficit, maybe you have more calories next fall and your macros are a little bit different. And so that does make a difference. But just recognize, like, guys, as fast as time goes, getting to next fall, just imagine where you could be in terms of your health, in terms of your aesthetic goals, if you just stay true to the goal that you've set for yourself. If you stay with, make actions and choices that align with that, like next Thanksgiving, next Halloween, not that we're still not eating that whole bucket, but that it could be so much different. And, the energy that you're going to have and the years that you're going to add onto your life, like that's to me, that's worth a lot more than just a little bit of extra what we perceive as fun. It all goes back to perception. What do you perceive as being easy? What do you perceive as being hard? What do you perceive as being miserable? And what do you perceive as being more fun? And you just have to decide what's worth it for you. And we're going to be chatting a lot more about mindset shifts and, mindset shifts moving into maintenance, mindset shifts moving beyond a deficit. If you're in a deficit phase, all these different things in the next coming weeks, because I really want this to stick. I really want this to stick so that you can feel your absolute best, and you can continue to move forward and be excited about your journey and excited about your process. One more cliche and I'll pop off of here. But you have to enjoy the journey. And that seems like super, super basic, but if there's one thing, I know I've given you a lot in the past 30 minutes that I really want you to work on in just the next week, is looking at what you're actually enjoying right now and how you can make it just a little bit more enjoyable, so that it's so worth sticking for the long haul. So would love to know your thoughts on this. I'd love to know, what you're going to work through on this. I would love to know where you need support on this, where you have questions. So just let me know. You guys have a great rest of your night.